in the group?
I will in a moment. It's
Okay.
still, we're having to redo it. So
Nope, that's fine.
thank you.
In the group?
I will in a moment. It's
Okay.
still, we're having to redo it. So
Nope, that's fine.
thank you. Perfect. Okay. Phew. Hi, everybody. Right now we are dealing with, of course, as always, technical issues. So we are putting that into the YouTube channel and I'm sharing the link right now. So just give me one moment. Do, 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 do. Do 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 do. I'm the Will Fairy. Do 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 do. And I'm just having a moment, of course. Oh, dear Lord. And I believe this should be working. Excellent. Hi, everybody. How are you? Hello, hello. Guess what? It is August and it is Make a Will Month. Who is this up here? Who is that? That's me. I'm Jo Welch and I'm the Will Fairy. It is such an honor to get to meet you guys. We're only going to spend about 20 minutes, 30 minutes, because the goal of this challenge is to start to make your brain think about what is up and why is the Will Fairy Challenge so important. You know, a lot of you I have met through coaching programs. And in those coaching programs, we talk about manifesting what it is that we want to see. We're speaking into existence. We are speaking into existence what it is that we would like to see in this world, right? The goals of our businesses. I think I might have even a guest who just came in as a virtual producer. I'm not sure who's in the room, but welcome. What we have here is two parts. We have a group called the Will Fairy Challenge, and right now a lot of folks are seeing that. I did post the YouTube. And then we also have this VIP room where people are joining us in the Zoom and they'll be able to ask questions in the chat directly. That VIP option is always available. John, thank you so much for popping into the VIP room. I will let you know that of course, my Facebook is not working. I thought I had solved those problems, but today we are doing it on YouTube and sharing that YouTube link. So when we talk about manifesting, a lot of folks who are entrepreneurs are in that space. You might be doing it in your spiritual life, in your home life. What is it that you want it to look like? And what we're doing here is we're also bringing that manifestation into the whole story, your whole story. And that's where I come in. I'm the beneficiary's best friend because I know that you are working hard and you are doing what you can for yourself, for your family, for your dreams. And we want to make sure that we put that success out there. I will let you know that I have a little puppy that I am puppy sitting, and she is not happy to be in her crate. I had to put her there, but in case you hear a little bit of whining, know that Pixie is in fact the superstar in the background, giving us a little song. So what we're going to do today is we're just going to cover what to expect, how we got here, some definitions, and I am leaving you with some homework. Now, again, this is meant to just be a little nugget, a little something to challenge your brain to start thinking about the importance of the will. But what we have to do to get there is we have to think about the difference between some facts and some myths. But before I go there, I do want to just introduce myself. I'm Jo Welch, and I'm known as the beneficiary's best friend because, well, as you know, and I know, it's hard to talk about the will. It's hard to talk about those successes. What does that mean in the long run? How do we show up in this world? There's a ton of questions. I know it. I've been talking to folks just like you in this same situation, and I get it. I really do. So let's look at some of those myths. Let's look at some of things. So before I move on, I just want to say that while I am not a will attorney, I am the Will Fairy. I'm the little fairy on your shoulder that says, get your will done. It's important. And I'm here to help navigate that process. So if you are on anywhere seeing me right now, just put into the chat, disclaimer, right? Or not an attorney. So I am not going to be giving out any legal advice. I know for some folks, we really want to get to the heart of the matter, but part of being in the, thank you. I see this coming up in our chats that that we really need to look at those experts. I know that you're an expert in your part of your world, whether it's in your home, at your business. And when we are engaging people and inviting them into that space, we want to use you as an expert. Well, I'm an expert in a lot of things, but the law is complicated and we want to make sure that people get the right answers. Where did this all start for me? Well, as a Latina, I'm a first generation Colombian. My parents are from Colombia, South America. I was born and raised here. And, you know, being a first generation Latina, it was really, it defines a lot of how I show up in the world. And when I found out these statistics, well, it was really hard to take. 1 in 4 Americans have a will. So just right there in itself, it means that if you and 4 people are in a room, it's likely that only one person has their will in place. That's already, those are hard numbers to take. But when we look at marginalized communities, when we look at Black and brown people, Asian folks, people with disabilities, people who are not necessarily, you know, seen in the mainstream, then we're going to see that it's only 1 in 10. That means that 90% of the communities may not have access to information, may not have access to those experts. And that is why it's so important for us to be having this conversation, because, well, now you're going to know the importance of this and you can share it with the people around you. Okay, what is a will? I quoted this so that we know exactly what a will is. Again, I'm not an attorney, but what we do know is that it's a legal document that puts forth your wishes. And it focuses on the distribution of property and the care of minor children. And I will say also thinking about pets and some of those other things in terms of your property. What does it mean if you don't even have that in place? Now, I know that there's a lot of savvy folks out there. I know that you know about life insurance and all these other elements that go in a trust. I am with you. I use the will as a vehicle. I use the will as the starting point, or I quote the social mayonnaise, the ways to get us from this conversation to the next. Because if you end up not having any documentation, if you don't have the appropriate things, if you were to get sick or if you were to pass on in place, actually what is happening is we are setting up our families to have to work really, really hard after we're gone. And I know that that's not the goal. That's not part of the big picture. It's called being intestate. Again, I'm not a lawyer, but we know that being intestate means that you die without a will, without those documents. And I found that it can cost your family 30% of whatever is being left. So again, this is not about being, you know, top level 1% rich. This is about looking at what your life has, what you are passing on at any point in your life, and knowing that 30% of every dollar is likely to be spent on probate costs, fees, time that's spent collecting. I have dear friends right now who have spent over 3 years trying to put together the story. And those folks did die with a will, but there could have been so much more. And so how do we make that better for our families? I hear it all the time. But Joe, I don't have anything. It's too expensive. I don't have time. Have you thought about these before? Put a 1 in the chat if one of these statements is ringing a bell. Put a 2 or a 3 if all of them do, and put a 10 if you even have other things that are coming up in your own life that are standing in your way. I'm with you. For me, it was all of it. I was afraid of the cost. I was afraid that I didn't have anything worthwhile. And more importantly, I didn't have the time. I didn't have the time to figure it out. I wish I had a will fairy. So just so you know, I get it. I get it. I have been there just like you. So I'm going to tell you a story about a really dear friend of mine. And I just need you to know it does have a happy ending, but it's a rough story to tell. in 2020, in the midst of the pandemic, I got a text that my dear friend Tony, who is like a brother to me, he's an interpreter and Latino, and I've known him my entire career. I found out he was in a coma. And that was really hard to deal with. You don't want to get that news. And in 2020, we weren't allowed to go anywhere. And his family was in one state and he was in another, and I was here. And what role do I have? And it was hard. It was hard to hear. It was hard to deal with. And I will admit that I decided to do something about it, because I had just the previous year had gone through my own tragedy and lost a partner. And that was so hard. It was so hard to be a bystander. I didn't know what to do. But here I decided to do something. I did create, and this is one of the Will Ferry specials, I created a special Facebook where I managed the flow of information. I was able to be in touch with the family, and I have their permission to share this story. And so what was tough is that he had a network, a huge network of folks around him, not only Latinos, Mexican, he had family in Mexico, but he also had friends, interpreters, colleagues, professionals. He was part of the deaf and the deafblind world. And so this was an unbelievable network. And as you would expect, people start guessing. And I didn't want to be a part of that, for sure. I didn't want to be a part of guessing. And I also didn't want to bother the family over and over again. Imagine how many calls came in trying to find out the source, like what's going on, where is Tony? Is he all right? And the pressure that came in. And I know this may seem like not a Will issue, but it is part and parcel of the Will Ferry experience, because what are we going to do? Well, it's all about that planning. It's all about finding the ways to make things better for everyone. So I established this Facebook page, and in there we streamlined the communication that was going to happen. The other side of this was that everyone was now getting the same story. I was in touch with the family. It was so important. But here's the part that comes back to the Will and the Will Ferry, is that I was also a part of his family. And while there was a lot of joy and prayers and really just getting Tony across the finish line to make sure that he knew we were out here, he didn't have a will in place. And I got to see firsthand how hard that was. And there was a lot of people who have that closeness and that love for him, as I'm sure they are in your family. Is it your mom, your dad that are going to feel like, maybe a sibling that feel like they know you the best? What about the best friend or the person who's living around you? Do you have a roommate? Who's the one who's going to make those decisions? And part of the Will experience is making sure you get those documents in place. So born from Tony's experience, seeing that firsthand, I have to say, and this is the good news, Tony is fine, working back in place. And as he was coming out of his coma that he was in for 31 days, he felt that those prayers and having all of that in one place was like a game changer for him. Like he felt that he had his own personal prayer circle. I know that for the family, we streamlined the conversation. They were the ones in charge of making sure that information only came from them. They could decide what it was and come out to everybody. And, and born from that. And also as a female entrepreneur, I was like, I know that this is not limited to just Tony. This is other business folks. This is people in my world, and making sure that that legacy is established now while it's not an emergency versus waiting for that emergency to happen. So I'm helping other entrepreneurs, women, men, non-binary, everybody. But I just want you to know that I'm providing not only for other folks, but also for my own family. You can see this gorgeous being, my daughter right here, that's JQ, and they're in college. And I will admit, I let the first year of college go by. I know I'm the Will Ferry, don't get on me, but they're going to get their will done ASAP before they go back to college, because they have a roommate, they have friends, there are people in their world out there. But I want to make sure that as their family and we're close, that the right people are there to be able to give the right information when it's needed. So we're going to just do a little fun game right here. I'm going to ask you, fact or fiction, in the chat. Tell me, if you die without a will, my children under the age of 18 will be taken care of. I am looking at that chat right now. Tell me, chat folks, how's it going? Is that fact or fiction? Oh, it's all taken care of. My children are all set. Let's see it. All right, that's fiction. I know you have an amazing family. I am confident that people around you love you, but you need to put something officially in place. You have life insurance, and so therefore you don't need a will. Is that true? Is that fact or fiction? Put that in the chat. Fact or fiction? It's fiction. And now there are circumstances where you might need something else, and maybe the will isn't necessarily the only tool that you're going to need. There's a lot of opportunities out there to be able to protect your assets, to protect your family, to protect the things that you want, your wishes to be done. But the reality is just having one of those tools by itself is not going to be enough. Oh, my parents have a will, and I'm just going to inherit all their things. All right, we're going to get to the heart of the matter. Come on, my sandwich generation. I'm old enough where my parents are now in they're aging in place, and we're trying to figure out what the next steps are from them. And I'm also raising an adult. So that's the sandwich. So just because my parents have a will, does that mean that I don't need one? No, every adult needs their own, because it determines your wishes, what you want to see happen. So as we already started talking about, that means that we have to look at our world as an ecosystem, and you're at the middle of it. And I know for some of you, you're like, no, don't look at me. I don't want the attention, or, oh, haven't done anything, or it'll take care of itself. But the reality is that, again, looking at the will as a blueprint, that you're going to be able to protect your ecosystem. You're going to have the checklist and the boxes to fill out, that they will know what to do. But I know that sometimes for some folks that feels really hard, because you're thinking, I haven't accomplished my goals, or I'm not wealthy, I don't have property or vehicles, or whatever those things that when we're growing up we put in the mind and say, oh, I don't have that value. But you do. You do have that value, and that comes from understanding your value and your legacy and what you're leaving behind. Hey, if you're here, you're already part of my ecosystem. And I'm going to tell you right now, if God forbid something were to happen, I would want to know. So we're going to look at the inventory of your life. It's not about how big the pile is or how much there is, but really you're starting with, when you want to create your will, because who are you protecting? Why do you want to do that? Whose life are you making better with it? The second piece is, by finishing my will, I'm going to protect. Is it your assets? Are you creating a future for younger generations? Are you maybe even donating or giving back to your alma mater, or lots of things in your life? What is it that's important? And what is your biggest concern? Go ahead and put your concerns in the chat if you're out there and you're listening as far and wide on this YouTube channel. What is your biggest concern? Because I know that they're out there, and it's the thing that's stopping you. We're going to do just a very quick touch on these ideas so that you can start. This is the challenge. Dig deep, list 2 or 3 family members, 3 connections that you have. Now, I wish that we would be able to spend more time, and there are going to certainly be opportunities for you to do so down the line. If you want to come and work with me, I'd love to get to meet you. But right now, let's start thinking about who those family members are. Who are the people in your world that are important that you're trying to protect? Could be someone in your immediate family or extended family. I have a lot of people in my found family. You also have business connections and social ones and support. If I've met you, if you know me, it's likely we met at a networking group, or we've done something together, right? It could be that you have support groups. All of those are important. And so when you move on, right, when we transition, who are we leaving behind? You know, how are we going to take care of that spouse, partner, children, business? Now, again, the will is not a one size fits all. There's a lot of programs and plans out there. And I'll just say that part of being in the Will Fairy family and being part of our programs is that I want to make this more of a one-stop shop, that I can bring experts in and you're like, oh, okay, I know what I need. I can talk to the experts and Joe knows them. And so we're going to find out more about how to protect everybody. So that's your homework. Take your inventory. Who do you protect? And what is your biggest concern about getting your will done? Who is it that you are connected to? Perhaps you're the driver of, the carpool. Maybe you are a scout leader if you have kids. Maybe you are an entrepreneur and you have all these different networks that value you and want to know if something were to happen. And then also, how are you taking care of those who are around you? There does need to be something in place for your business, because it's not just an automatic transfer. There's a lot of details and laws and information that go into that. So, oh, wait, over here. How did I end up? Wait, let me see if I can do this. The next Will Ferry Challenge will be on September 12th. It is always free to everybody. If you go to willferrychallenge.com, you can bring more friends, especially if you are trying to figure it out and want to come back together and be able to get your brain moving. I also want to let you know that I have a couple other things that are in play. We have two books that are going to be coming out. One is Who Gets Your Cheese? And so that's going to be Tales from the Will Ferry, and making sure that we talk about these important pieces, but also your story. It's possible you have been a family member, or you have seen firsthand how having a will or not having a will has made an impact. So you can go to story.thewillferry.com. Both of those are just free programs that I'll keep you posted as both of these books are coming to play. And the big exciting moment right now for me is, and I'll put myself in the middle of this, let's see, is the One Will Away program. It's usually $997. It's actually, I got to be honest, it's actually $3,500, $4,000, because it's 6 weeks. You get my time. We're bringing in experts. We're carving out the time, but I really want this one to be jam-packed of people who especially need the will. And because you're here and because you're family, if you put in FAM, F-A-M, and you're the code, it will be a 90% discount, making it only $99.70. But that's just for today. It will go up back to that $997 in 24 hours. So I love you all. I thank you so much for being a part of everything. Oh, I'm just so small right here. Let's see if I can bring myself. I know that some of my friends are also looking at the fun way that I am able to maneuver the Zoom and having those slides in the back. Hey, we are all in this together. I want to thank you for taking a little time with me, for finding out a little bit more and challenging yourself and thinking like, what do I need to get that protection for my family? My name is Jo Welch. I'm known as the beneficiary's best friend, because face it, we don't want to talk about the will, but we have to. You have value. And after talking to so many of you, I know that there's a lot of questions. There's no time. We're stretching the dollar. And so what I did is I created programs just for you. Busy schedules, parents working hard to make sure that your legacy goes to the next generation. I was like you. I was afraid. I didn't think I had value. And the reality is we just need a blueprint. So with that, I'm here to help you with your blueprint, whether you want to meet one-on-one, whether you want another of these fun, quick sessions. If you need that will, I've got resources and an ecosystem that I'd love to share. My name is Jo Welch, and I can't wait to see you. Will Ferry Challenge, onewillaway.com, meet.jowelch.com. There's so many ways you can find me.